Hello and welcome to another episode of Data Delicacies, hosted by yours truly, Arun Kumar. The show is powered by Incentivio, the ultimate customer guest engagement platform. We have an amazing guest today, one of our truly favorite clients, who I had an opportunity to meet in Chicago last week at NRA, which was great. The one and only Jared Cohen. Jared, thank you for jumping on the show today.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here, excited to talk.
Love it. So Jared is the Chief Operating Officer at the Protein Bar. Jared, before we jump into your current role and your responsibilities, would love to talk. I mean, you have a really, really awesome kind of background and in different scopes that finally got you into restaurants. We'd love to talk about that journey. And then, and then kind of what got you to that role, your previous role at McDonald's and that journey that got you there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of atypical for a lot of people in the business. And yeah, today, CEO of Protein Bar and Kitchen, but I definitely didn't start out that way in my career path and kind of took a circuitous route to end up where I've been for the last 7 years. I am originally a finance guy by trade. I'm always quantitatively oriented, always into numbers, into data, into analysis. And so the earlier years of my career was in corporate finance and private equity investment management roles. And I found that I could do that work, but I found that work to be somewhat mechanical and somewhat repetitive. And I started thinking about, okay, what else can I do? I didn't really know. And I thought, okay, business school is the way to kind of expand optionality and not necessarily do something different. So that's what brought me out to Chicago. I went to the University of Chicago Business School and wanted to continue seeing what else was out there and kind of keep optionality open, which led me right into management consulting. I thought, it could leverage the quantitative toolkit that I had, but take a job where you're doing different things, you're working with different people, you're seeing different industries. And I was like, okay, great. I'll figure out what I want to do from here. I found myself gravitating towards projects and clients in consumer-facing businesses. I really found those products, industries, companies, problems very tangible and something that energized me and something I liked thinking about. And I was there for 5+ years, working on a variety of different things, having great experiences, and never did any work in restaurants, but got outreached from a recruiter who was looking to put someone in the global strategy group at McDonald's. And for me, always been a very active customer and a big fan of QSR and limited service restaurants. Had never worked in the space, but it was a really unique time for McDonald's. They were looking for kind of the first time to bring outside talent into roles like strategy. And it was also for the world's biggest restaurant system, like the biggest restaurant system in the history of human civilization. Like it was a unique opportunity for me because they hadn't been doing very well. And I think they recognized that the business was stagnant, the business needed new energy, it needed external ideas. And so I joined in 2014 to help run global strategy. That was a really interesting transition for me, going from a consulting role to an execution role, but one at a very large company, right? The preeminent restaurant company in the world. I got a lot of great experiences out of that part of my career, got to help work on the turnaround of the organization and the enterprise, but also got to do some very granular and very emerging technology focused work, particularly around third-party delivery. And I think that opened my eyes to getting some more operational experience and operational leadership. Because for me, as a strategy consultant, you're very much an advisor. You're very much giving guidance. You're saying, okay, go do this. And then, you're hoping things go well. And in McDonald's in the strategy group, the challenge was to make that guidance more tangible and more execution oriented, more actionable, and actually see the results of your work. And I'd say the work that we did in third-party delivery, developing the global partnership with Uber Eats, rolling that out, getting that from a pilot program in Florida to a globally scaled platform was super interesting. And the operational experience of doing that kind of taught me, like, hey, this is a really cool set of experiences. Maybe you want to do more of that, more operationally executional work. I found, and it seemed that McDonald's was not going to be the place for me to get more of that experience because it is a large restaurant system with a large set of people doing operational execution. And so for me, I started to think about what brands I thought were in good positions, in good parts of the market with something that resonated with me personally. and somewhere where I could leverage my experience and toolkit. And I came to Protein Bar and Kitchen. At the time, they had recently added a new CEO, and this was in 2017. So they brought on a CEO, and who I saw, I didn't know, but I saw his background was longtime restaurant operator. And I thought about my own background and said, well, I'm not that,
Yeah.
but I have a whole different set of experiences. I have this corporate toolkit, this management consulting toolkit, very different from the world my now co-partner in leading the business came from. And I reached out to him and said, "Hey, I think Protein Bar and Kitchen is extremely well positioned, uniquely differentiated in the better for you fast casual space. And I'm bringing a lot to the table in the non-typical, non-lifetime restaurant operator skill set. And I think I could be really additive to what you're trying to do." We started talking. I talked with the private equity owners for the brand, and that led to me joining in 2017. And so I think it's been 8 years next month.
Wow, that's unbelievable. And there's a couple of things I want to touch on there. I can actually quite resonate with a part of your journey because I went through a very similar one myself, where I was in human capital consulting for quite some time, and then I did my MBA, and then I got drawn into the kind of the hospitality tech world. But similar to you, I never had experience working, at a restaurant before, but I had that experience more from a strategy perspective, and then now getting down to more of the execution side. And I think what drew me to hospitality, similar to what you'd mentioned, was it just seemed like there was so much room for disruption. Working with, especially when I was on the HCM side, I worked with companies in different industries, and there are definitely other areas, industry that are ripe for disruption, but I would say hospitality specifically is one that every single person interacts with it in any given day, right? You talk about, McDonald's, like, I mean, McDonald's is a household name. We all go to it. We all go to fast casual restaurants often. And when you're traveling or where you're home, or if it's a social gathering, whatever it is. So I think that's what really drew me to it, because in some way, shape, or form, I think we all feel connected to hospitality and restaurants. And that's what got me super excited. So your experience at McDonald's, I mean, jumping right into that as one of the biggest companies in the world, how much of that were you able to, apply some of those learnings to Protein Bar, and how much of it, starting, about 8 years ago, was it learning on the fly and adapting to a much smaller brand in comparison to McDonald's?
I think so. A lot of learnings were applicable, and a lot of learnings weren't necessarily applicable from the
Right.
transition from McDonald's to Protein Bar. And just for background on Protein Bar and Kitchen, we've got 15 restaurants in the system today, fast casual concept focused on better for you. So we quinoa bowls, rice bowls, salads, protein shakes and smoothies, acai bowls, all oriented around the idea that every diet needs protein, and we can provide protein for every body. So it's distinctly different than the McDonald's experience, the McDonald's
Right.
positioning. But to your point, at the end of the day, this is a hospitality business. It's about providing someone with, a great culinary experience in a convenient way and giving them a significant value. And for Protein Bar and Kitchen, that's helping people manage their active on-the-go lifestyles and get the protein that they need. I'd say a lot of learnings from McDonald's came from the work that we did launching the partnership with Uber Eats. This was a lot of the work that I did there was 2015, 16, 17. So third-party delivery was really just emerging. Mobile
Mhm.
ordering was kind of just emerging, but there were a lot of things that we recognized at McDonald's were going to be important. um, I had the ability to see them from the perspective of a global restaurant leader, and then bring that into Protein Bar and Kitchen, where it was, I'd say, a much much smaller company. A headquarters team that you could fit in like one office,
Right.
and not people who had the experience or the clout to necessarily have relationships with people like an Uber Eats. Our brand at the time was small enough that you'd fill out a form on an Uber Eats website or a DoorDash website, and an account executive who maybe had worked there for a week may give you a call.
Right. Right.
It was That part was an adjustment to go into that brand and be like, oh no no no, I was just meeting with the top leadership, and now your brand's at a much smaller level. So like some of the lessons that you learn about what these platforms can do and how important they could be to customer journeys, you now kind of lack the scale and the leverage to kind of make things happen as much as you'd like to. So you kind of, I'd say, take the learnings of what the restaurant industry should be doing, and then put them in a scrappy environment where you kind of need to cobble
Yeah.
stuff together without the scale or team or money to maybe make things happen the way you'd like.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's super interesting. And the piece I want to dive into is you mentioned your specialty is around data strategy, right? Like specifically on the data side of things, coming into Protein Bar, I mean, what are some of the key areas where data is super important to you? Because I think, chatting with different folks in the industry, data seems to be the key word, right? Like everyone's like, hey, we
Sure.
have data, we can get you data, we can get you this. And sometimes people don't have enough data. Sometimes people have too much data. Some people don't know what to do with the data, right? So we'd
Yeah.
love to get your take there.
No, there's and you made this point earlier, but in hospitality, it's an environment very ripe for disruption, digitization. I think because it's historically been an extremely analog industry, because it's been historically an extremely fragmented industry, it still is. There's lots of mom and pop restaurant operators out there. The industry itself is extremely fragmented. It's been analog. And because the transaction size is relatively low relative to, hotels, airlines, auto, retail, it's kind of been late to the game in bringing some of the table stakes technology from other industries into restaurants and hospitality. I think I could add a lot of value to Protein Bar just by having an analytical bent and by knowing what data we could leverage within the ecosystem that we already had coming in. So I'll give you an example. When I started at Protein Bar and Kitchen, we had a loyalty program. It was not with Incentivio, it was on a legacy provider. We had it since 2013 or 14, and it originated as a punch card. It kind of evolved a little bit from there to be on an app where you could scan and get points. And I started asking questions like, where is this data? How are we using this data? And it was kind of like a blank stare from the team. It's like, well, we can get it through the partner website. Like, what do you guys use it for? Like, well, not really. We customers get free shakes on their birthday. And I was like, okay, but there's a robust set of insights we can mine from just that data, understanding how customers are interacting with our business. And so some of the first things we started to do was, okay, let's take this data and let's start using it on the culinary side. So let's start looking and seeing what items people are ordering, whether those people order those items more than once, how long, are people using us for our protein shakes? Are people using us for our quinoa bowls? Are people using us for both?
Mhm.
Some of the very basics at understanding how customers used our brand were things that the organization didn't really, they anecdotally could tell you what they thought, didn't have the data to underpin that, and to drive decision making from everything to, okay, how do we change the recipes? How do we do menu innovation? How does the order flow, operationally make the most sense? What's the most efficient thing for us to be spending time on? Like, I think the loyalty data that we had sitting that no one had ever looked at could inform a lot of better decisions and better strategies for the brand. But no one had ever used it because we just didn't have anyone who wanted to ask the question before or knew how to pull that data together. And I'd say that was 7-8 years ago, and I'd say we've
Yeah.
only gotten progressively further and evolved further to say, okay, what else can we use data for? What other sources of data do we have? How can we bring in third-party data with first-party data? Like, we've continued to push ourselves that way
Right.
to build the right infrastructure that lets us make more informed decisions, and more kind of have a better sense of prioritizing the right tasks for the organization so that we can get the best business outcomes.
And would you say that in today's market, with supply chains and margins and everything where they are, that it's almost table stakes to have that data centric approach? Otherwise, you're kind of flying blind and it makes it super tough to scale or understand kind of where the holes in the business are.
Yeah, I know, absolutely. I'd say it's definitely table stakes. You can, if you run a great restaurant and have an amazing culinary experience and great hospitality, like, you can continue to do that even without doing a bunch of analytics behind it. But I'd
Yeah.
say, as you say, like, once you start scaling, it becomes harder to scale those pieces of it. And so, that's why we do things like try and build the company culture, the training culture that we have to make
Right.
sure that everyone is executing at the same standard. But as you get bigger, you're going to need more infrastructure to be able to collectively observe and collectively aggregate the information about what's running through your restaurants, such that you can make better decisions, kind of forecast better about where you're going. And
Yeah.
I'd say for us, we knew we needed that infrastructure to run our 15 or so restaurants as best we can. And now as we're getting into franchising and non-traditional growth, like we have the infrastructure in place that we can continue to grow rapidly from a footprint perspective while having the muscle that allows us to gather those insights and act on those insights across a broader portfolio of stores.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's becoming the name of the game. And I think even if we look at our personal lives, I use Google Home all over my house and, a Nest thermostat, right? And I'm always looking at data of like, okay, how efficient was I on the thermostat? Just small little things, I think, to try and make ourselves more efficient. Want to ask you this. So you brought up the concept of loyalty and how you're using it today at Protein Bar and kind of the evolution of how you looked at that data. Before we dive deeper into that, I would love to get a sense of, what does loyalty mean to you?
I think at its at its core, it's about I'd say if I had to summarize it, right, I'd say it's really about the one-to-one relationship you can facilitate between your brand and your customer. It's about not just maximizing transactions, maximizing average check, maximizing throughput, but the loyalty at its core is about that relationship that you build with a customer who you're hopefully acquiring into the brand, bringing into the restaurant, and engaging them such that they become, a regular user, a habitual user, an evangelist, like a super fanatic.
Yeah.
You're kind of continuing to manage the relationship with them, engage with them, and build them as a valuable part of what your company provides. And so to me, the loyalty like is a very simple way to describe like the complicated set of decisions and automations you can make to enable that to happen because it's different
Mhm.
fundamentally for everybody. Everyone can use a brand in a different way, particularly a brand like Protein Bar and Kitchen. We've got a full breakfast menu, a full lunch menu, a full beverage smoothie shake menu, and customers, whether it's pickup delivery, whether it's catering, customers use us in a very, very variable set of ways, set of
Yeah.
use occasions, set of frequencies, and you in an ideal world, like if you could prognosticate, like think about where we want to be in 5 years, you want an infrastructure that can manage each type of those relationships and type of those use occasions in its own specific and customizable way. And I'd
Yeah.
say we're still at the early innings of getting to that, but we've come a long way from when I joined Protein Bar, and it was just an 8 punch card, and you got a free shake on your birthday. We're more sophisticated now than we were then, but I think where we're ultimately going to have to get to is something that's increasingly sophisticated, increasingly intelligent about the way you're building that relationship with differentiated customers to facilitate the way they want to engage with your brand.
So because your omni-channel experience is so diverse and the ways your customer can interact with you can vary. I mean, even from one person, they could do it through catering, they can come in store, they can do
Sure.
different parts. It has to be personalized because, I mean, people are inherently very, individualistic, but it's also because of the way you market, because of all the different omni-channel experiences you have, each of them has to have their own flavor.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd say absolutely. I mean, the and I'd say you want that because it's going to provide a better sense of value to the customer, and the customer is going to feel it. The customer is going to feel better about getting something that is customized and catered to what specifically interests them. And so for Protein Bar and Kitchen, recent example in the last couple of years, several years ago, we started doing a lapsed guest campaign with kind of our legacy provider. Um, Very simple, off the shelf. After X amount of days, hey, we haven't seen you in a while. You used to be high
Mhm.
frequency. Here's an offer, 50% off or a couple dollars off. And we we had the data, and so as we were thinking about this, it's like, okay, what would make this better? What would make this resonate to bring these customers back in? It's like, well, we should be personalizing this.
Right.
We should be making this more customized, more specified to the way customers use our brand. And so one of the things we set up and we kind of managed through the Incentivio platform is okay, yes, we still do lapsed guest, but now we think about how you're using the brand. And if you use the brand for shakes, we're going to give you a lapsed guest offer specifically around and redeemable for a discounted shake. And if you use this for entrees, we're going to give you one specific to entrees. And in
Right.
just making that, and that's kind of like very bare bones, like very crude way of segmenting a couple of big product categories. But I feel like the redemptions that we see, the magnitude difference from a generic, hey, here's a couple of dollars off to a, hey, here's an offer for a product that you buy. It's been at least, is it a five-fold difference in redemption? It's something on that order of magnitude.
Wow.
So it's a
Okay.
material difference in retaining the customers because now you're reaching, now it's not just a, oh, hey, I got an automated email that's giving me a couple of dollars off. It's a, oh, hey, I get shakes there. And this is they want me to come back in and get a shake. I want to take that
Right.
further and get down to things like item level. But for now, that's given us a step change in retaining those customers. And so when I'm talking about how do we make a loyalty engine that's increasingly specific to what someone's doing, that's the direction I want us to continue to evolve in.
Yeah, yeah. No, and I'd love to pick on that. I just kind of want to pick on just one question here first too is, you know, what was kind of your aha moment with us as you're looking at Incentivio and you start to roll it out where you're like, hey, this is gonna potentially help us get to that level of sophistication?
I'd say it's similar to the experiences we had with Toast, our POS provider, to be honest with you,
Yeah.
because you guys are an emerging restaurant tech provider. You're Series A, right? So you're like
Yeah.
like early in the game, and I think we had a very positive experience becoming one of the first enterprise brands to be on the Toast platform. And what we saw back in 2016, 17, when the company made the switch onto using Toast, we saw a company that was building a platform that was going to accommodate the needs of an emerging restaurant brand like us, that was going to be interoperable, was going to be quickly updatable. And I think we viewed you guys in the discussions that we had in making our choice of transition. We viewed you guys as a similar frame of mind to where we want to go. So in terms of our legacy provider, every time you wanted to make a change to your app or your loyalty structure, well, that was going to be an app upgrade, and that's a development cycle,
Mhm.
and that's a capital outlay. And it was like, okay, that's that's not really. We need to be more responsive in terms of how we deliver to our customers. And in talking with you guys, philosophically, you guys, Incentivio is well aligned to that frame, right? Where it's like we want to continue meeting the needs of customers through enabling our restaurant partners, whether it's a new feature, a new add-on, a new way of presenting the brand in the
Yes.
app or on the web. And so for us, that's very important because what we to think about where I came from before McDonald's, we don't have the resources that a McDonald's has, but what we do have that McDonald's doesn't have is the ability to do things and change directions on a dime, be able to implement things really quickly. And so we wanted a partner who was going to that's like-minded in that way. So it's like,
Yeah.
hey, we want to do this. Okay, how can we build it? How can we push it out? And how can we start giving it to customers? Because that's the speed to market is something that we can do better than a bigger company, and so that's where we have to continue to push the envelope.
Yeah. So it sounds like being nimble and being able to pivot quickly is something that's super important because I guess, consumers' behaviors changes. I mean, I'm sure you've probably added a ton of different items and different buckets to your menus that you need to be able to adapt and market to that. So you needed something that you partner with there.
Yeah, no, and I'd say like a great example of that is we changed the home screen on our app in the last week or so because you guys had pushed out an update that we wanted to take advantage of. You guys made past orders. This is getting really in the weeds, but like the past order screen and the way you can look at the past order screen
Right.
is leaps and bounds better than where it had been shortly before, where now it gives you transaction level detail. And so it's like, okay, we want to make that a bigger part of the homepage. And then we want to we're freeing up real estate on the bottom screen on the kind of the home menu. So we're going to pull our catering button into there. And we'd like to make that happen. And that's a couple of quick conversations with our account rep. And it's live in the experience for everybody. Like that type of change used to be well, if we do an app refresh this year, we'll put it on the list and we'll hope to get that home screen update in the
Right.
queue.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's interesting because it's almost a gift and a curse. And, we talk about the hospitality industry is ripe for disruption. It's a gift and a curse in the sense that there's a lot of, I think, room for improvement, but at the same time, some of these, I guess, some of the requirements needed by hospitality, it's growing super fast, right? Like all the different things we're seeing, and we're trying to catch up with other industries, and the advancement of technology, and it's like we're always trying to do our best to keep up there. So I'd love that feedback, and I think the one area I want to get back to is you talk about getting to this certain level of sophistication. If you could wave a magic wand today, what would the ideal, fully kind of baked out in your head idea of what loyalty would look like, both from a consumer perspective and then from your side, as a group as big as you are in terms of the data that you want to see from that?
Oh man, that's a heck of a magic wand. Like what would you wish you had? I mean, I think um I if I'm completely wish casting, right? Like what would what could I imagine would be the most amazing platform out there and what it would have? And if your engineers want to put this on the roadmap, like that would be super cool. I would appreciate it. But like it's, just you can imagine you can imagine a platform that becomes significantly more sophisticated in figuring out the optimal set of communication benefits, rewards to offer individuals. And so that's what true personalization would be an engine smart enough to say, okay, Jared came in and got a perk from Protein Bar. It's the first time he's been here. And I'm integrating first and third party data. So I know how much Jared spent, but I also know his demographic profile because I've enriched it from third party data sources. And customers like Jared who order perks on a Monday morning when they come in, they're probably going to be a Daily Shake customer aspirationally. And so we're going to serve them with a customized welcome flow of communication. So he's going to get an email after day one, he's going to get an email after day five. And actually, we've got some AI driven insights that say that the best response is not, to leave it after email at day five, but we give them an offer on day six. And the offer isn't for a perk, but it's to try something else because we know that by getting someone to try a second shake, they develop a variety, they see more of the category, and they're more frequent. Like you can imagine a platform that is able to integrate a variety of data streams and I'm assuming some kind of AI underpinnings that could then look at the type of thing that we would do if we had infinite time, but we can't do. AI might be able to be leverageable to say, all right, this is the best way to serve this customer who
Yeah.
is, it's no longer I've broken it down into shake customers and entree customers, the crew where we're doing it today, but it's like I'm breaking it down into Jared who is bought it on a Monday morning and bought this item. Like you can
Yeah.
imagine with enough data, an intelligent enough engine could create the right permutation to maximize my Jared's loyalty. And then to maximize Arun's loyalty is a completely different set of
Yes. Got it.
communications.
Got it. Yeah, I love it. And again, wasn't so much trying to pry for thoughts in our engineering roadmap, although we will take into
you,
consideration. I
you
think
you gave me you said what would you wish for? So that's what I'm wishing for. I don't
yeah,
even
no, and I love it. Honestly, and I asked that question because you do have a very data centric approach, and I enjoy the way that you kind of dissect things. And obviously, coming from a management consulting world where that has to be your mindset, and I had similar thing in my background. I think that concept of you know, I think sometimes the way we bucket things out in general, how we look at stuff, where it's like either it's frequency of spend or what you're spending on, or how often you're coming, whatever that is. that's only like one layer of it, right? Like,
Right. Right.
I may be a coffee person, but I may not be a morning coffee person. I may be an afternoon coffee person. I may be a night coffee person. I don't know. So it's
Hmm.
very, very different. And I always think to kind of like, as much as I think about this in the hospitality space, but I also think about it in other areas, right? Like I'm a big sneakerhead, and I look at some websites that'll send me now ads based on my shoe size and the specific type of shoe that I would be looking for, versus before it'd be a very broad ad of like, oh, we have a sale on kids' shoes. Well, I'm like, well, that doesn't really apply to me, right? So,
Hmm.
and the reason I bring that up is I'd love to get a sense from you, like outside of the world of restaurants, where else are you part of any loyalty programs? And do you see anything out there outside of the world of restaurants where you're like, huh, this is great, and they're maybe further along than where we are from this hospitality lens?
I mean, I think the fortunate thing about being in restaurants is that many industries are ahead of us in kind of the where they are on the curve of things like loyalty.
Mhm.
So I think yes, I'm a part of a ton of loyalty program. I was a consultant, so every travel loyalty program you can name, rental car, hotel, airlines, still very much a part of. I don't earn very many points anymore. I'm not in the points maximizing days anymore, but like
Yeah.
I think all those industries definitely show a roadmap of things you can consider. And I honestly think that a lot of what we see, this is still in hospitality, but in e-commerce, you see a lot of the third-party platforms. So whether it's Uber or DoorDash or Grubhub or Amazon, like a lot of those companies are pushing the boundaries in terms of running experiments, creating different structures, creating different reward systems, membership programs. They're doing a lot because it's very easy for them to iterate on a tech platform, and so I think that gives us in the restaurant space, a lot of potential insights, potential experimentation ideas, because they're iterating so quickly and they've been spending billions of dollars to do it. And you can kind of look at that and say, hey, is this applicable to what we're doing? I'd say the concept of lifetime value of a customer is something that I don't think you heard a lot of people in the restaurant space talking about until recently. But there are so many technology companies focused on the restaurant space that's just a given part of the vernacular, and
Yeah.
it's kind of through osmosis, it's kind of permeated the restaurant community. So now when I say LTV, people aren't always like, wait, what are you talking about? Now people understand that I'm what I'm saying and why it's important. So I think there's a lot of industries that are farther ahead in terms of how loyalty could evolve. And I'd say it's definitely it continues to be a good source of ideation and thoughts for us. I mean, the whole topic of revenue management is one, it's related to loyalty, but it's like this idea of just being a bit more thoughtful and strategic about the way you manage your business and how you're driving the growth of your revenue. It's stuff that is in the CPG space, which maybe is not as huge in loyalty, but is very much important to the way those businesses are run, and something that my background's in CPG, so something that I think we can leverage a lot in restaurants as well.
Mm. Yeah. No, love all those thoughts and insights there. I think it's to your point. Yeah, I definitely agree. I think, hospitality is a few years behind a lot of other industries, and we can learn a lot, but at the same time, there's also an overwhelming amount of things that are out there, and we can't skip any steps. I think we have to do it the right way and get there, because otherwise, I think, it, especially with hospitality where there's so much volume, and there's so many customers involved, and food is such a, I want to say almost like it's a very elastic experience, right? Like you can have an awesome experiences 10 times, and on the 11th time, if you don't have one, some people
Mm-hmm.
will probably abandon that brand. So it's like you can't experiment too much, where to the point now where you may lose some customers that have been big spenders, long-time customers, all of that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so kind of want to take a step back here and look at things at more from a macro scale. Is, you were at NRA. I mean, staying up to date with all the different tech trends in the industry. What are some of the things you've seen, whether it was at NRA or just kind of like in your own research, that
Mm-hmm.
excite you coming up in the next, 6 months, 12 months, some emerging tech that you're like, hey, this could be really cool?
Yeah, and I will not talk about data at all because my bias is always like, okay, let me talk more about data. It's like, well, you talk about data all day anyway. I I think I think we're still in the very early innings of robotics
Mm,
and automation. We've explored a number of potential technologies and kind of the emerging players in that landscape for potential projects. I
mm,
think I think it's going to continue to attract attention, and I think it's getting there. And I don't know whether it's going to get there in 12 months or 36 months. But it continues to be a really interesting opportunity area for a business like ours that is highly oriented around speed and not around kind of customization like a Chipotle make line would be. Like for Protein Bar and Kitchen, you're typically ordering our kind of chef crafted recipes, our curated experiences, bowls, salads, shakes. And while we facilitate customization, it's not like you go down the line and you say, I want this, this, and this. They're more curated. And so for that lends itself to potentially an automation platform to be able to assemble a bowl or blend a shake. And there are solutions out there that can do that. Now, they're not practical for us yet, but they could be pretty shortly. And so I think that continues to be an area that is really interesting because for us, every menu item at Protein Bar and Kitchen can be made in under 180 seconds. And so when we need to continue to think about maximizing throughput. And so what are the ways we can do that? Well, this may take some of the variance out of the assembly process and enable us to get more speed, and more speed provides more convenience to the customer.
right.
And that's, we're going to continue to look at that and continue to watch it really, really closely.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting seeing the prevalence of robotics grow. I think show over show. I do quite a bit of the road show, and
Mm-hmm.
more and more booths popping up with robotics. And I think even just when I was in Chicago, I think I saw a couple of espresso bars that were just a robot arm, right? You put your
Mm-hmm.
thing in the kiosk, and it's just there's no one there. It's just a full robot arm. And I think in places like Japan and South Korea that they've been doing this stuff for quite some time now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's starting to and I guess my question for you there is there, I guess, where do you like to sit on that curve of like being an early adopter versus a laggard, right? Like how do you time it? I know it's obviously for
Right.
hindsight's 2020, but how do you best time when to jump into something that's more of like an emerging technology?
No, it's a really good question, and it's not an easy decision because okay, yeah, you could be early, you could go right now, but is the product ready, or is it going to require a lot more of your time and effort to help get it ready?
Yeah.
Versus and it, I think we remain relatively small, and so we're fast. We can do things quickly, but we're small and we have to kind of pick and choose our bets in terms of where we're going to spend our time and energy. And so for us, I think we want to continue to take a pulse of where things are. But for us to actually get to the point where we're going to implement something, on a pilot basis or rolling it out across the system, we have to be really, really sure that we can make it work and that it's going to deliver the meaningful difference that we need. And I'd say we've done that in the past with technologies. Nothing as intense as an automated make line, but POS integration, we were one of the first. We worked with some of the companies that are now the primary providers of those. We worked with them when they were, a couple of guys in a garage, because we saw that value that it could bring to us really, really clearly, and it was a really simple, like, okay, we implement this and we're going to get this. With automation, there's a much greater capital outlay. There's a much greater change to the configuration of the restaurant, the configuration of your labor model. Like there's a lot more lifting there. And so so we're not going to be as early on that curve because it requires that much more investment and more time from us.
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
think that what that means practically is, we're going to keep an eye on the folks who've invested in it and have put it into their restaurants. And as soon as we can see that it would mean the material difference that we needed to mean at Protein Bar and Kitchen, then we'll go after it. But it's we can't afford to be too early because we don't have the time or the resources to
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
co-develop something. We'd much rather be like the fast followers and put it in place before your legacy brands do, um, because our customer, by virtue of who our customer is and the better for you market that we're in, our customer does have kind of I'd say they expect us to be a forward-thinking brand. So we want to be early, but we can't afford to be the earliest.
Yeah, I hear you. So I'm assuming there's some sort of like net present value analysis that you do, but the earlier stage the tech is in, there's just too much unknown and it's just not worth it. I mean, it's probably better that you get it done right than get it done first.
Yeah, and I mean, like a good example is in talking about automation. Like we were talking about prototyping an automated make line for Protein Bar and Kitchen, which
Mm.
we were really interested in the idea. But and in the we couldn't get it into practice. We didn't think it was practical. And the second generation of the make line came out, and it was half the size. And it's like, okay, at half the size, that's a lot more compelling. And so some of these products get iterated so quickly that it's like, all right, you can kind of wait for it to advance because you need to make sure it hits the threshold for what it's going to do to the business. Versus we could put the first gen in, but it requires a whole bunch of changes. Oh, and by the way, it's going to become obsolete.
Right.
Six,
Yeah.
12 months from now.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially with the way technology is advancing, it's you never know, right? Like, is this
Mm-hmm.
V1? I mean, I look at anything V1. I mean, even the new Apple, headset,
Sure.
I got it's a V1. I'm always like, listen, it's V1. That there's a huge battery in the back. It's probably it's huge charge time. I'll wait till V3, V4 before I decide to jump in. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I want to shift to this quickly. You mentioned that, Protein Bar, you're looking to grow, you're looking to potentially franchise out. Would love to hear your kind of thoughts there, and how you're looking to do that. I know you're looking at some non-traditional places as well where you're looking to expand. Would love for you to share some of that context.
Yeah, no, we're super excited to be live and franchising now. We are a brand that's been around since 2009 and kind of one of the first better for you fast casual brands. We spent a number of years getting the operating model right, getting the culinary experience right, getting the tech stack and infrastructure right, the data infrastructure, getting that squared away. And we finally got to a point where we're like, okay, we built a suburban prototype that opened about 9 months ago. It's doing great. And for a brand that's historically been downtown oriented, now we've got a model that works for the suburbs, and we're excited to be franchising. And so we're opening our first franchise locations this summer, in not
Okay.
in the direct Chicagoland area, but Chicago adjacent, so we can get there and make sure they're successful. And we're looking for more partners as quickly as we can find them. I think that's on the franchising side, and then the non-traditional side is another big avenue of growth for Protein Bar and Kitchen. There is a fundamental challenge of finding something good to eat, good for you and tasty at airports, at hospitals, at college campuses. And so we've seen a lot of success with the stores we have in those places. We've got a hospital store that's one of the best in the system. We've got an on-campus location at Northwestern University that's great. We've got airport locations open at Salt Lake City, and in the next couple of months, O'Hare and LaGuardia Airport. And our view is, our brand is extremely flexible and can fit into a variety of spaces. And for non-traditional environments like these, where it's often very times difficult to get something good, something tasty, and something that's not going to leave you feeling terrible, we want our brand to be in those places. And so I think that the next 12 months are going to be really exciting for us because we've got the non-traditional locations opening up, first franchise locations opening up. And for us, once people see that model, we think there's going to be a lot of people who want to bring the brand to their communities as well.
Love it. And someone that frequents airports more often than I should, I can definitely say the food options are not the best. And sometimes I'm just craving something healthy, but it's either the most ludicrously expensive thing in an airport or just non-existent. And or it's closed when I'm flying for whatever reasons. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a pain. As a consultant, I know the
Yeah.
pain. I know the
You know.
pain where it's like, oh, I have to have McDonald's again, and not that I don't like McDonald's because I spend time there. I love the
Yes.
brand, but sometimes a healthy protein shake, a breakfast burrito, a salad, like this would be a great option to have at an airport. And yeah, customers in Salt Lake, LaGuardia, and O'Hare have that imminently, and we're working to come to more airports and travel locations, hopefully quickly.
Yeah, love it. And I think even just the psychological boost I get from having you know, a smoothie versus a Diet Coke or whatever. It just makes you feel better, especially if you're jumping from meeting to meeting and flying back at a work day and whatever. And I was able to try, protein bar when I was in Chicago and I absolutely loved it. So I can definitely vouch for how awesome it is. And I'd love to see it at more airports so I can have a more healthy option. But Jared, I want to thank you again for the time. I want to wrap up with a quick lightning round if that's cool. I'm going to fire off a few kind of fun questions here. Would love to get your first takes at
Yeah,
them as we go through it.
totally.
So what is your current favorite cocktail of choice?
Oh my gosh. I have three young kids. I don't spend a lot of time on the cocktail circuit. But I just tend to just an old fashioned is what I've been doing for the last
Oh,
several years.
there you go. I'm a big old-fashioned guy myself. Love it. If you had to choose between a lunch party and a dinner party, which one would you choose?
I would choose a dinner party. I think people are more relaxed.
Okay, so dinner and is there like a specific vibe? Is it more like a dinner party at your house, or would you go out for dinner?
Um, I just hosted a whole bunch of Memorial Day barbecues. I would be
Oh,
going out.
okay. Speaking of hosting barbecues, is there a home cooked meal that you're famously known for?
Um, famously in my house, I'd say amongst my immediate family, I make a really good chicken souvlaki. So that's if I have the time to do it, then that's what I like to do. I really like Greek and Mediterranean cuisines. So if I can have time to cook, that's what I focus on.
Love it. Love it. I'm gonna have to take you up on that next time I'm in Chicago. What is your current favorite restaurant in Chicago? And is there a specific dish you'd want to shout out for the folks listening?
Oh man, my current favorite restaurant in Chicago. And it cannot be Protein Bar and Kitchen. I'm assuming. I'm assuming like I
Happy
can't.
protein bar kitchen. I mean, that's the
Yeah,
given. That's the given.
that's
So
the that's the cop out answer.
your
I was
second
ready.
favorite, yeah.
I've got a series of recommendations for you. There's so many great restaurants in Chicago. Honestly, my favorite restaurant in Chicago that I don't get to go to very much anymore is it's actually like a random hole in the wall for a Middle Eastern food called Amir Kebab. I don't get to go there very much anymore because I don't live in the city anymore. I live in the burbs with my
Got it.
small children. So yeah, I'd highlight Amir Kebab and all their stuff is great. I wish I could go there more often.
Love it. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Jared, I want to thank you again for the time. This was an unbelievable conversation. I feel like we could have gone on for quite some time because I love the way you think about things. I think we both come from that consulting world. So I think the way we look at stuff it resonates. And just kind of want to highlight some of the key insights that you're brought up, right? And I think you talk about loyalties essentially is not so much just a transactional thing where you give discounts. It's really building a one-to-one relationship. And where you look at the sophistication of where loyalty can go is almost permeates a few levels deeper than that, where you can get really, really customized and personalized to each person because there could be two people that get coffees or a protein shake from Protein Bar 5 days a week, but have very different tastes and likes. Depends on where they get it, their active lifestyle, whatever that could be. And I think that's essentially where I think the industry's trying to go, and then we're definitely trying to push for. So would be super excited to continue to get your thoughts as we build to that state. And the kind of rise of robotics in the industry, something that excites you. And I think it does to me as well. I think it's something it's only a matter of time. We're starting to see, brick and mortar places with no people working in them, right? I think some banks are starting to move to that model too, where it's just kiosks. So it'd be really interesting to see that whole kind of advent of robotics. I think even some of the major cities now, you see the little delivery bots
Mm-hmm.
on the sidewalks. So that's super cool to see. And it's exciting to see kind of what you decide to deploy at some point across the Protein Bar universe as you start to grow. And then just within Protein Bar itself, you're looking to do some really cool, continuing to grow out your franchising side of the business and also your non-traditional side. So excited to see you on more college campuses and airports selfishly, so I can have a healthy option there. But Jared, I want to thank you so much again. Where can folks find you if they want to get in touch with you?
Yeah, if you want to get in touch with us at Protein Bar, theproteinbar.com. Got all the information there, franchising, regular concept. But if you need to find me, LinkedIn, Twitter, I'm reachable. I'm findable.
Love it. Well, Jared, thank you again. Thank you everybody for tuning into another episode of Data Delicacies. Again, this is the show we bring the best and brightest in the industry to talk all things hospitality, talk all things tech. Jared's done some awesome stuff today. Look forward to staying connected, Jared. We thank you for being such an awesome partner of ours. And again, we love to hear your insights and would continue to hear more. So thank you again for joining. For all the folks listening, thank you for tuning in. As always, you can reach me at arun@incentivio.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm also very findable, as you could say. And again, if we're always looking for guests on the show, so if you're interested in joining, please reach out. Let's find some time to get connected. But otherwise, Jared, thank you again for joining. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Have a good one.
Thanks.